LSD for me became like what a microscope is for biology or medicine, or like what the telescope is for astronomers. Now we can now study the psyche, by giving people these substances that will bring the deep psyche and make it available for observation. All those things that Freud was talking about were there. People regress into childhood, infancy. They would have problems with toilet training, all kinds of psychosexual trauma. But it was like barely the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we now had a tool that took us way beyond this. And the beginnings were quite challenging for me, because here I was giving a completely unknown substance to these patients. They were having powerful experiences, and I didn't have a conceptual framework. I had no idea what this was about. Today you have, very, very rich literature. People can read things before they go there. But this was like, every day was a surprise. I realized that we are now exploring sort of new dimensions of the psyche. I believe that I was creating new model of the psyche. I spent about 3 years sitting in these sessions, asking them to write what happened to them. I wrote down my observations, and then I would be doing my sessions as we were going with it and comparing my own session with their sessions. And then when finally I had this large cartography, I realized this was not a new cartography at all. This was actually a very ancient cartography, and I started seeing the connection to shamanism and to Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and Kabbalah and so on. And I realized this is a rediscovery of some very, very ancient wisdom, putting it into a sort of modern framework. A cartography that now has 3 major layers. The first one, it shares with traditional psychology. Actually, traditional psychology is nothing but postnatal biography. What happened to you in childhood, in infancy, later in life. There is no notion that birth is recorded in any way in the psyche. Freud said that the newborn is a tabula rasa, although there was a short period in his life when he thought maybe the difficult passage through the birth canal is like a template for all future anxieties, but then he moved away from it. And Otto Rank, gave him for his birthday this new book that Freud had known that he wrote. Freud was very, very upset, supposedly went to a state of shock for 4 months. It took him 4 months to recover from reading that book, because he believed that Rank's contribution would ultimately be considered to be more significant than his own. He said, this very important discovery, second in its significance only to the discovery by psychoanalysis by himself. And he says, we should study Caesarean-born people and difficult births and so on. And then he started getting letters from different institutes, particularly from Berlin, warning him that this was a very dangerous doctrine that's going to split the homogeneity of the psychoanalytic movement. So for the integrity of psychoanalytic movement, Freud actually excommunicated Rank. But as we were doing this work with psychedelics, one person after another would actually go into that realm, and they started reliving their own births. The experiences were coming in 4 kind of experiential clusters. I started talking about them as basic perinatal matrices. They were reflecting the stages of birth. Each of them, when they were experienced, was characterized by specific emotions, by specific physical feelings, a specific kind of a symbolism. Each of them was also like a selective opening into the collective unconscious. So suddenly also Jung started, not just Rank, but Jung started coming in with this idea of collective unconscious. There were experiences that were transcending what Alan once called the skin-encapsulated ego, the way we usually see ourselves, or what the Hindus called nama-rupa, name and shape. And they had the experience of their boundaries melting, and they were becoming other people, or experienced group consciousness. identified in a very convincing way, very authentic way with different life forms. They transcending time. The experiences were taking them not just to birth and prenatal time, but into ancestral memories, collective memories, and so on. And then also for many, the archetypal realm of the collective unconscious opened, and they would have encountering mythological beings, visiting our archetypal realms, heaven, hell, purgatory, places of different mythologies of the world, frequently mythologies that they didn't know anything about, but we could validate it by looking into mythological literature. Joseph Campbell was a very close friend who actually was a mediator between me and Christina. He sent Christina to me, and I had list of mythological experiences that people had that I didn't understand, and the person who was having them didn't understand. And I would show it to him, and he was this incredible lexicon of mythology. When I was working with a person who had thanatophobia, and in one of these perinatal sessions had the experience of going into the underworld, and there was an opening into the underworld, and it was guarded by a goddess in the form of a pig. At that point, he suddenly came out of the experience and wanted paper and something to draw with, and created a whole series of complicated labyrinths, and very, very dissatisfied with what it was. We spent later sort of a lot of time. I was asking questions, free associations. I was really trying to get some Freudian understanding of what this was about, and didn't get very far. And so I told him the story, and he says, "This is fascinating. This was the devouring mother night of the Moleculan culture in New Guinea. They breed these pigs, the boys breed these pigs, and then they kill them ritually, and rites of passage. It's like killing the mother and experiencing the separation from the mother and independence. And they say they have this goddess, and they believe that the goddess is guarding the underworld, and then when they die, to complete the journey, they have to show that they can draw this very complicated labyrinth, and they practice their whole life, to get it right." So those were instances like this, some really obscure elements from mythology, and Joseph, was giving the understanding. So this is the cartography that emerged, which has the biographical, the recollective level, then it has the perinatal level broken into these four distinct matrices, and then there is this enormous realm that we now call transpersonal. We have transpersonal psychology, we have International Transpersonal Association, we have the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, and so on. The map, in its totality, is really, you could go to some of the great Eastern spiritual philosophies. It's like what you find in Hinduism, in Buddhism, and so on. Basically, the universe is created by absolute consciousness. There's an intelligent, creative principle. The universe is created as virtual reality by orchestrating experiences, and everything that we experience as an object in the external world, in these holotropic states, has its subjective counterpart. So you can, for example, have the experience where you turn into a sequoia tree, and your body is the body of the sequoia tree, and you have the experience of the sap, circulating in the cambium. You can the experience of the exchange of minerals and water in the roots, and you can experience the photosynthesis, and at the same time you can experience the consciousness of the sequoia as a kind of a witness of ages. If you go to the Sequoia National Park, they show you a cut through a sequoia tree, which is like gigantic, and you can see the cut through it, and there's like this much from the surface. It's like Columbus discovered America, and that's, this a little further, and Jesus crucified and so on. These things are like 3,000, 4,000, 4,000 years. And so you can have that experience of like being like a witness of history, almost like a Buddha sort of, sitting on an immovable spot, and there's all these mercurial things that are happening in the organic world, the species sort of originating and dying, or dynasties, created and destroyed and so on. You're sort of sitting there, just sort of watching it all happening like a movie. Or even better one, it's possible to experience like consciousness of granite.